Johnson. I chair this committee, joined by our Vice Chair, Mr. Blumenfeld of the 3rd Council District, and members Gil Cedillo of Council District 1 and John Lee of Council District 12. We'll begin this meeting, as we do all of our meetings, with the folks who have signed up for multiple items and general public comment. Those people number 2 are 2 in number. If I can get their names up, we'll call them up. You'll be given each 2 minutes to speak. And after that, we will close general public comment. Lauren Natali, Allison Noel.
Good morning, or good afternoon. I'm Lauren from the AIDS Healthcare Foundation, Lauren Natoli. As you discuss the use of land in Los Angeles, please do not forget our city's massive wound that is our homelessness crisis. Developers come here claiming this minimal environmental impact or that future tourist destination. But what LA needs the most is housing for our most vulnerable populations. We need to get homeless people off the street and out of danger. We cannot truly mold the shape of our great city without these minimal provisions. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay. I'm here to speak about the...
Can you tell us your name?
Oh, my name is Allison Noel.
Thank you.
And I'm here to speak about the amount of time given to primary home residents. I believe it's 120 days. Once they've registered, that they're allowed to use any type of platform to rent out a room in their residence. I have to say that during the last 4 years, I've been in default, I've been in foreclosure, and became very desperate and used Airbnb as a source of income because I was not able to find employment myself. And it's not that I'm not qualified, but I was not able to find full-time employment. So I had the experience over the summer of Airbnb-ing my house. And I can gladly say that it has allowed me to become current on my mortgage, even though I've had to take out a hard money loan. I would say most of the people that came to visit were foreigners. They were very respectful. They were young, and it reminded me of myself when I was young and traveling, and it gave me that type of opportunity to stay in a neighborhood. You know, there was 3 to a room, or one of the rooms allows 3 people. It usually was 3 young people or a father and 2 sons. So I think the limitation is that you only want to have 3 people.
Thank you. All right, that closes general public comment for this meeting. We will begin our agenda item with item number 8, which there's a request to continue until October 22, 2019. So without objection, that'll be the order. Next, we'll consider item number 5.
Sure. Item 5, Councilman, this is a Cultural Heritage Commission report relative to the inclusion of the Miller residence as a historic cultural monument.
All right, we have one public comment speaker on that, Mariana Gatto.
Good afternoon, council members. Mariana Gatto, the property owner, and on behalf of myself and my husband, we wish to express our support for the proposal and are humbled to serve as the stewards of this historic cultural resource. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Mr. Bernstein?
Yes, good afternoon. Ken Bernstein with the Department of City Planning and Office of Historic Resources. The Cultural Heritage Commission recommended designation of the Miller residence, single-family home on Los Feliz Boulevard, as a notable work of master architects Gable and Wyant, who were also well known for designing Hangar 1 at LA International Airport, among other landmarks.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So I'll ask members on consent that we concur with the Cultural Heritage Commission and approve the conclusion of the Miller residence located at 5060 West Los Feliz Boulevard in the list of historic cultural monuments. Without objection, that'll be the order. I'll take us to item number 1.
Item 1, Councilman, is the Director's of Planning's weekly report.
Excellent. We see the inimitable Mr. Botoni approaching the microphone.
Thank you, Chair Harris Dawson, and members of the Planning and Land Use Management Committee, Vince Bertoni, Director of Planning. Just a few items for today, actually, regarding the Director's report. First off, just to let you know, we have actually launched a new website for our City Planning Department, so I encourage you all to go there. It's you can access it at our previous website, planning.lacity.org, and what we've done is, it's really the first comprehensive update we've done in many, many years, and we've actually had in the past 23 different websites that we've actually combined into one. So all of our different initiatives we had in the department typically had their own website. We've made one central portal. It is much more user-friendly in the past than it's been in the past. So we think it's going to be much easier for our everyday Angelinos to come in and access the planning department, all of the services that we provide. What I also want to do is put before you is just our last quarterly housing report. And so that is the second quarter of 2019. So that's April through June of this year. And I also have with me Ashley Atkinson from our Performance Management Unit. But it shows that our housing entitlements are still going fairly strong. If you look at the first half of this year, we're at 13,286. If you look at the first and second quarter together in terms of the number of housing units being proposed for entitlement. An interesting statistic as part of that is if you look at it, is 27% of the units that have come in this year are being proposed as affordable. So this quarter we had 35% of the units that were proposed were affordable. The last quarter was 17%, so we're averaging for the year so far 27%. So that's a significant increase that we've seen in the past. You can also see that our transit-oriented communities incentives have also remained strong. For the second quarter, roughly half of the units coming in for proposal were through our transit-oriented communities incentives program. And on average, they propose around 20% of the units to be affordable on average, depending upon the units. So that's something that's important to note. We also include here a map of where we have more of a deep dive or breakdown of the TOC incentive program, and you can see where they're being located within the city. If you go further into the report, we also have overview of our density bonus, where those are getting proposed. Those are still a lot less than our TOC program. This last quarter, whereas we had 47% proposed through transit-oriented communities, 9% through general plan amendment, density bonus was about 10%. So TOC is much more popular than the density bonus program. And accessory dwelling, as you can see also later on in the report, also still very popular through the program. So this year to date, we've had 2,600 applications. That's about on the same pace as we did for all of last year, which is over 5,000 units. And you can still see how those are being mapped. Still, the same areas are very popular for accessory dwelling units. Are areas such as Sun Valley, Arleta, Pacoima, as well as Reseda are kind of our most popular areas. But with that, that just concludes my report, and I'm happy to answer any questions or anything you may need.
Mr. Blumenfield.
Great, thank you. And Vince, we really appreciate these reports. There's a lot of great information. And that stat that you mentioned, 27% affordable, I'd love to give that some context. How has that changed, and how does that compare, even if you don't have the exact numbers, to other cities in California?
I don't know if I have that number off the top of my head. I don't know if Ashley, if you have that number, if you can kind of come up to the microphone. But Ashley has a lot of the data more at her fingertips than I do. But I know that that is a significant increase in affordable that we had in the past.
Yeah, in past years, we were seeing somewhere between 8 and 12% affordable
For the
on
city.
average in the city of Los Angeles. I don't have good stats for other cities at my fingertips, but we were already exceeding every other city but San Francisco in producing low-income housing, and I think so we can expect that other cities are producing at lower rates than 20%.
Yeah, I mean, it would be interesting to get that number, because I would venture to say at 27% affordable, and obviously I'm a big proponent of affordable. I'd like us to go even further and do more,
Right.
but we are probably double the average for other cities, if not more. So it says something about Los Angeles and our commitment. We're not moving fast enough, but we're moving a hell of a lot faster than every other city in this state. And the fact that we are probably more than double every other city is worth mentioning.
Right. And we can bring that back for you. And we have Arthi Varma here, who's a deputy director for citywide policy, who her staff does the housing policy, also has a lot of that information. So we can maybe give you a few statistics, just kind of showing you over time affordability in terms of the units getting proposed and approved over the last several years, so you can get a sense of how we're progressing, as well as how we are comparing today to the other cities and counties in California.
Yeah. Also, I'd like to note, and the graphs are really interesting, and you know, there's a lot of concerns about the linkage fee and Measure J and how that was potentially slowed down housing production. But if you look at your graph, it seems that housing production continues to go up. If you were to squash down the sort of artificial jump when the linkage fee was being proposed, you can almost see a straight line trend, which is good. Although I have to ask, when I look at the maps, and, you know, so overall that seems like a good trend in that the linkage fee has not stopped overall development. It seems that it is pushed it toward transit-oriented communities, which is great. But with the one concern that when I look at the West Valley on the map, I see a lot of empty, and part of that is because we are transit deprived.
Right.
You know, there's 60 subway stops in the city of Los Angeles. There's only 3 in the valley, and there's 0 west of the 405. So what are the implications for the West Valley when we make this shift away from variances? Because it seems like in the West Valley there's been no variance since Measure J passed and the linkage fee, and very little of the TOC.
Right. Well, the TOC is dependent upon transit, as you know, and so that is just a function of what transit is there. There's a few things to keep in mind with transit. It depends on you qualify for transit-oriented communities incentives for multiple scenarios if you're near a rail station, so you could be Metrolink, Amtrak, but the most common would be Metro Rail, as well as 2 bus lines that intersect that have certain levels of service. And how close the property is from being near either the bus or the rail transit. There's also ability to do that through the density bonus program too. So if you're not near transit, you can avail yourself of density bonus. I think in areas that aren't close to transit, like parts of the West Valley, one of the things that we need to look at is, could we make our density bonus incentives more effective for parts of the city? That is something that is on our work program to do, is to look at the density bonus program. It was something that the city council had put in the funding in last year's budget, so into our housing policy team, so we could do that. So we are moving forward on that, and I think that is something that could help places like the West Valley. And of course, the other part of that is looking at our community plans, and I know we're going through all of the southern part of the valley, both Southwest and Southeast Valley, updating our community plans now, and there's opportunities there to do it. But I think your question may also be, it's not just about producing housing, it's affordable, and our TOC and our density bonus incentives really provide for that affordable units, and it's going to, I think our density bonus and looking at our density bonus provisions would help us there.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions from the committee for Mr. Bertoni? If not, we'll thank him for his thorough report, and the housing progress report is always very enlightening. is always an enlightening look at our most important issue in the city at this moment, especially given our conversation this morning about homelessness and encampment. So thank you so much, Department of City Planning and Mr. Bertoni. We'll continue item number 1 and move to item number 2, Mr. Mejia.
Item 2, Councilman, this is a report from the Cultural Heritage Commission relative to the inclusion of the Perry residence as a historic cultural monument.
Once again, Ken Bernstein, Department of City Planning. The Perry residence is a 2-story single-family home in the Huntington Palisades neighborhood of Los Angeles. Like item number 5, this home was designed by the architecture firm of Gable and Wyant. Cultural Heritage Commission recommendation was that it is eligible for historic designation as an excellent example of the Monterey Revival architectural style.
Excellent. Thank you so much. We have 11 public comment speakers on item number 2. So I'll call your name. You'll have a minute each to speak on this matter. Thomas O'Connor, Victor de la Cruz, Syra Mirbabe, Heather Morris, Ignacio Fernandez.
My name is Thomas O'Connor, and I'm a resident of District 5. I'm a past board member of the Society of Architectural Historians, Southern California Chapter, and I'm an enthusiastic supporter of the nomination of the Perry House. Gable and Wyant are not as well known as other architects of Spanish Revival homes in Los Angeles, like John Byers or Wallace Neff, but as we saw just earlier today, a house has been nominated. This is an excellent example of the Monterey Revival style. It was published in 1932 in Architectural Digest magazine, which was a prestigious journal still existing today, then mainly concentrating on residential architecture in the Los Angeles area. So it showed early on that it was an example of fine residential architecture in the Monterey or Spanish Revival style. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, honorable council members. I'm Victor de la Cruz, representing the homeowners. Your decision today will have major ramifications for the family who bought this house, so we ask that you please take the time to get it right, even if it means continuing this item so that we can meet with your respective staffs. If you feel that you must designate today, then we ask that you at least exempt the rear facade and backyard, none of which are visible to the public and both of which have been significantly altered through the years. You have done this for other properties and it makes sense here, especially given how conflicted the commission was. When I say conflicted, I mean it. Just listen to what they said at the hearing. Commissioner Kennard, quote, "I think you all will get a sense of how difficult this decision is for us. When I saw the house, I realized this is going to be a borderline decision." Commissioner Malofsky, quote, "This is really a tough one for me. I think there have been substantial alterations to the house." Council members, when you designate a family's home, the merits should not be borderline or difficult or tough, especially when Survey LA led this family to believe that they had nothing to worry about. Our clients bought this home to raise their family. They deserve the right to be able to make modest.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Sarah Mirbabai with Manat. Council members, the individual who nominated this house because he used to live in it and has fond memories of the prior owner has done a great job of instilling fear that this house will be torn down so that our clients can build a McMansion. That's not what's happening. Our client hired Rios Clementi Hale Studios to renovate the house long before the nomination application was filed. But more importantly, what a homeowner may or may not do is not the standard of designation. It's the merits of the home, and you've already heard that the Cultural Heritage Commissioners themselves were borderline about whether this house rose to that standard. A professional architectural historian has weighed in to say that this is definitely not a monument. Survey LA has weighed in to say that this is not a monument. And city staff, when discussing the architect in connection with other nominations, dismissed those nominations in part because this architect was not known for residential architecture, just a few commercial commissions. Finally, there's the fact that the house's entire backyard and large portions of the rear facade have already been.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, honorable council members of the Plan Committee. My name is Ignacio Fernandez, and I'm a retired architect who prepared and submitted the application for the Perry residence nomination on behalf of a grassroots group of concerned citizens. Our group wants to ensure that the Perry residence receives protection from the HCM designation, as it is an important link to the Pacific Palisades early development and contributes to the community's character of the neighborhood. However, it was recently threatened with demolition. It is important to note that HCM designation does not freeze a building in time and does not prevent sensitive upgrades from being made. There is a clear process of proposing modifications to HCMs, and there is no compelling reasons why the owners or future owners cannot adapt or enlarge this house to meet 21st century living standards while following preservation guidelines. HCM designation will also enable the current and future owners to take advantage of the Popular Mills Act. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Heather Morris, and my husband and I are the owners of this house. We purchased this home with the aim of making it a home for our family, and we do not have plans to tear down this house. Please think of how unfair this is for us. This house was not listed in Survey LA, so we had every reason to believe that there were no historic issues to be concerned about. In fact, when we looked at Survey LA, we saw that there would be literally surrounded by dozens of other homes in the neighborhood that were listed, yet have yet to be designated. What does it say about our city that works in this haphazard fashion? When Survey LA is said to be comprehensive, yet our house can be designated on a whim, not because experts believe it should be, but because the family of previous owners wish it so. It is a dangerous precedent. In short, yes, the house is old and beautiful, and that's why we put all of our resources into buying it for our house. But that alone should not keep us from doing the modest renovations that we've asked for. And for that reason, I beg you for no.
Elizabeth Lehrer, Phyllis Duddick, Susan Rabigny, Maria Gabriel.
Hi, thank you for letting me speak. My name is Elizabeth Lehrer, and I used to live down the street. I think that this house, it wasn't borderline. It was the majority of the commissioners voted to preserve this house. You have the Pacific Palisades Historical Society. You have the LA Conservancy. You have the majority of the experts in LA are in favor of preserving this house. I want to call your attention to this huge tree, 70-foot tall deodar cedar tree. We need habitat for our wildlife. We need this tree to remain on the property. I'm shocked that anybody would consider scraping away this house or this tree. This is a home that has stories to tell into the future. It was well made and it can be adapted. And I just want to say that anybody who buys a beautiful home should be considerate and sensitive to the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Phyllis Dudick, friend of the Perry House. I do need to clarify that Survey LA is a survey. It is not used as a document for eligibility. Many homes are not on it. Some are on it. It is a work in progress, and it is used for inventory purposes. Over 1,100 HMC owners may avail themselves of the city design process, enabling owners to make the changes and renovations to their properties that are important to them. And it's a very smooth process. There's no reason this owner cannot benefit from that. And to close, I would like to read an excerpt from a letter from David Card, Vice Chair of the Pacific Palisades Community Council, who speaks on behalf of himself and the views of so many people in the Palisades. As a landscape designer, I marvel at this beautiful home. It must be preserved for future generations. Thank you.
Susan Rubini, Council District 11. Preserving the 1929 Perry House and its 90-year-old deodar cedar has struck a resonant chord in many Palisadians. One person, her childhood home nearby bulldozed, writes, "My beautiful memories had disappeared. The address was the only thing that remained the same." The World War II European exiled artists who sought refuge in the Palisades found a veritable Mediterranean-type paradise. Another Palisadian writes, they lived in beautiful old houses which identify the Palisades as an area with a history. Some things should not be monetized. I believe the history of an area is one of them. I urge the Plum Committee to recommend designation of the Perry House as an HCM. We need to avoid the alternative, or as Joni Mitchell said, they paved paradise and put up a parking lot.
Hi, good afternoon, council members. I'm Maria Gabriel, and I've been helping the property owners with their renovations. I want to respond to the statements that the designation would be good for the property owners or that designation will not be a big deal for them. That, after all, was the rationale of the commission when it narrowly voted to recommend designation despite feeling torn and lukewarm about this property. First, let's put to bed the notion that this house can get a Mills Act contract from the city. It cannot. We spoke to the OHR and they said no, this property's assessed value is too high, and I can't think of a single home in the Palisades that would be eligible. Second, the argument that my clients just have to work with the commission to renovate their home, that ignores how expensive and time-consuming this process is and how difficult it is to make an addition to the rear of the property once a house is a monument. That is why we are begging you to please not designate this property, and if you do, exempt the rear facade in the backyard. They should at least be able to put their own personal touch on parts of the house that nobody from the public will ever see. Thank you.
Thank you, Lori Hashimoto. Marcelo Vavala.
Good afternoon, council members. I'm Lori Hashimoto. I am here to speak on behalf of Michael and Heather, who I've gotten to know quite well working with them on their home. They love this home and purchased it precisely because it's an old home, but this whole process has definitely made them regret their choice. What message are we sending when any family who purchases an old home will suddenly have to face a monument designation because one person can spread false rumors about their intentions? And what good is Survey LA when the city will just ignore it and instead let the loudest voice in the room or the person with the most time on their hands dictate what is historic over the reasoned opinions of experts? When Survey LA was done, this house was there for the city's chosen architectural historians to look at and analyze. There were no bushes or gates hiding the property, and since the house is not being recommended for designation based on who lived there, the argument that Survey LA made a mistake doesn't hold water. And we know that Survey LA walked the site because houses just down the street were listed. Council members, none of this makes sense, and we ask that you please do not allow an arbitrary recommendation.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, honorable council members. Marcello Vavala with the Los Angeles Conservancy. We support this nomination, which carries the recommendation of the CHC, the city's appointed body of preservation experts. While designation will provide protection for this residence that helps define the historic character of the Palisades, it is important to note that designation will not freeze the property in time. Rather, it provides for a clear process in which modifications can be proposed and approved following preservation guidelines. There's much flexibility for owners of historic residences to adapt or expand their homes with modern amenities. Additionally, HCM designation can enable the property owner to take advantage of tax incentives and also take advantage of the California Historic Building Code. The Conservancy can point to numerous examples throughout the city of landmark residences that have been sensitively updated for 21st century living, and we urge the Plum Committee to recommend designation of the Perry residence. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That concludes public comment. We'll ask for a representative from Council District 11 to provide comments in this regard.
Good afternoon, council members. Len Nguyen, council member Mike Bonan's office, planning deputy. First off, I wanted to thank all the constituents who submitted letters, both pro and con, for the record. We shared them all with the council member, and he really appreciates all the feedback it weighed in his decision. Councilmember Bonin also relies on the expertise of our own cultural heritage commissioners, and as such, the council member supports the commission's recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Any discussion, members?
Question for staff.
Mr. Bernstein? Mr. Blumenfeld?
Just curious, because I heard public comment, some people say that they could take advantage of certain tax issues, and some said that they cannot. What's the rules about that? Is there a a cap in terms of value of the home where you can take advantage or not take advantage?
Yes, there is, council members. There is was being referred to as the Mills Act Historical Property Contract Program. Owners may enter into a contract, voluntary contract with the city that provides for a significant property tax reduction in many cases. For single-family homes, the valuation limit under the program is $1.5 million, and I'm guessing that the current property values in Pacific Palisades in most cases would exceed that. There is a process by which owners may apply for an exemption to those valuation limits, and there's a higher bar for approving those exemptions and showing a more significant commitment. We require some additional documentation, but there is a process to apply for an exemption to that $1.5 million limit that can be approved by the Cultural Heritage Commission. But those are, it is true that those are granted, we grant only probably a few of those per year.
Right, so the homeowner really can't take advantage. Most likely they cannot take advantage of it.
Most likely not, but there is a process by which they could apply.
Right. What is the impact on the homeowners in terms of if this designation goes forward?
Well, future permits would be reviewed by our staff, Office of Historic Resources, and potentially the Cultural Heritage Commission. With most cases, with most routine work as well as most minor additions to the property, that can be approved in a very expedited process by working with our staff. In fact, in this case, the owner and their architect have been consulting with our staff and our preservation architect during this time period between the Cultural Heritage Commission consideration and Plum consideration, and have been making very positive progress toward looking at significant additions and modifications to the home that could be approved in a very straightforward manner at a staff level.
So it's not an extra financial burden to put on in addition to the house?
No, that's something that can be reviewed in most cases at a staff level.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Lee, questions, comments? He has no comments. Mr. Cedillo.
I'm interested in the notice. Did the homeowners have notice of the status before they purchased the home?
Notice of the so before they purchased the home, the property. It's true. The property was not under consideration for monument status. So there was no notice because the nomination came after their purchase.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Cedillo and members. So I'll make a motion that we concur with the Cultural Heritage Commission and approve the inclusion of the Perry residence located at 14924 West Camarosa Drive in the list of historic cultural monuments. Been moved.
Can I speak in the matter?
Let me get a second and then we'll have discussion. Second. It's been seconded by Mr. Cedillo. Discussion, Mr. Cedillo.
Yes, it just seems to me that without notice, it seems unfair. Some violation of any modicum of due process that the party would have notice and then an opportunity to respond. In this instance, it would be whether I buy the house or not because I know what I'm buying. But in this instance, it's clear that they didn't know what they were buying and now they're encumbered with it. And frankly, process after the fact and where they're unlikely to get any Mills Act variations, et cetera, seems to be just patently unfair. An offer was made of some compromise, in other words, of creating a opportunity for the homeowners to have control of the back part, the part that doesn't reach the public. And if that is a proposal from the homeowners, it seems to me to be a fair compromise, Mr. Chair.
Understood. Other comments, questions? Ready for a vote? All right.
Is that something that the staff wants to
Address?
speak to?
The compromise position?
You're asking for.
Is there something you want to address?
Well, certainly that is up to the discretion of the committee. The staff is carrying forward the Cultural Heritage Commission's recommendation, which was to designate the entire property. Designation of the entire property does not limit the ability to develop the rear of the property or to have significant rear additions approved in an expedited fashion by our staff.
Mr. Nguyen, you want to weigh in on this? Pardon me? Supports recommendation. All right. Any other discussion? All right, hearing none, we'll call for a vote. There's been a motion, and it's been seconded. Mr. Blumenfeld? Aye. Mr. Cedillo?
No.
Mr. Lee?
Aye.
Ayes. 3-1. We'll forward this motion to the full City Council. Thank you, Mr. Bernstein, and everybody who came to discuss this matter. Mr. Mejia, can we read into records item 3 and 4, which we'll consider together?
Yes, Councilman. Item 3 is a report from the Cultural Heritage Commission relative to the inclusion of the Orange Street Gateway Chateau South. And item 4 is, again, a CHC report, but this is the inclusion of the Orange Street Gateway Chateau North, across the street from each other. And
Yes,
you will
Mr.
have to vote separately on each item.
We have to vote separately on 3 and 4? Okay.
Thank you again, Ken Bernstein, planning staff. This is a pair of 2-story multifamily residential buildings at the corner of South La Jolla and West Orange Street in the Wilshire-Fairfax area of Los Angeles. Both were constructed in 1936 by the same owner, and both were designed in the late Chateau-esque architectural style. Both are a gateway to a historic neighborhood in the Wilshire-Fairfax district. The Cultural Heritage Commission recommended both properties for declaration as a historic cultural monument as an excellent and intact example of a multifamily residence in the late Chateau-esque architectural style.
All right, and so those are comments for both items?
Yes.
All right. So we have a few public comment speakers on items number 3 and 4. For item number 4, we have Steve Luffman.
Hello. Good afternoon, council members. I'm the applicant for both of the HCMs, so I will speak on both. If I could have an extra minute, I would be...
One more time?
I am the applicant on both of these historic monuments. Can I have an extra minute?
You have an extra minute for applicants. City Attorney, can you opine on this? I believe that applies to folks who have appealed decisions by other bodies. I didn't know it applies to applicants.
It does, but also these two items should be taken separately, so the gentleman should get time for item 3 and then time for item 4.
He only signed up for one item.
No, my name was, I filled in my name incorrectly in the first one. I did L and pressed return by accident.
Okay, so 1 minute for each?
Thank you, that's fine.
Okay.
2 minutes total. That's
So you
fine.
meant to sign up for 2? All right, so we'll make sure we get a card for the item, because you signed up for 4 but not 3, but we'll get it together.
I
Thank
understand.
you.
Stephen Luffman, I'm the applicant on this HCM and the Orange Street Gateway South. Both these buildings were built in 1936. The buildings form a unique Chateau-esque gateway to the 6400 block of Orange Street within the Survey LA Orange Street Historic Multifamily Neighborhood. The buildings alone are a captivating and unaltered example of a castle-like architecture. When seen together with a sister building across the street, they form a rare and unusual gateway to the neighborhood, a fantastic little treasure of Los Angeles. The buildings were designed by J.J. Reese, an immigrant from Poland who went on to build and design hundreds of quality multifamily buildings throughout Los Angeles, including 3 early garden apartment projects. Reese also engineered Los Angeles Historic Cultural Monument 1010. It is also interesting to note that Reese's daughter became only the 7th woman to graduate from USC with a degree in architecture. I ask that you to recommend this building for inclusion in the list of historic cultural monuments. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We have Marlene McCrae, Terry Werner.
Marlene McCrae, I'm here in support of the designation of this property as a historic cultural monument. It speaks to the wonderful architecture and promise of a storied Los Angeles. It's a community that European immigrants came and saw the potential there, and a woman helped to design this building, and she took everything into her historical memory and made this building into something that it is today. It is part of the Los Angeles story. It should be kept intact as much as possible, and it is to the neighborhood a cultural historical monument. We believe in it. We love the buildings. Everyone on the street stands and looks at it and says, these buildings should remain as they are. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Terry Werner, and I'm here speaking in behalf of the Chateau Gateway, the two properties on Orange Street. I'd like to read a statement or something into the record from one of my neighbors, and she is not able to be here today because of illness, and her name is Tracy Dennison. Inclusion of the Chateau as a historical monument. Dear City Council Plum memberships, the Chateau architecture style of the building acts as a sentry to a neighborhood on the Miracle Mile, designed by architect Joseph J. Reese in 1933. The townhouses are gracious living in an area now under heavy inclusion by other properties. We have been dealing with the Mid-City Wells Council, Community Council to... Thank you.
Thank you. I believe we have a representative from Council District 5, Mr. Kleinman.
Good afternoon, council members. Viv Kleinman with Council District 5. Councilmember Koretz strongly supports the historical-cultural monument applications for both 6400 and 6401 West Orange Street. The twin dual-story multifamily residential buildings exhibit extraordinary examples of 1930s late Chateau-esque architecture. The twin buildings flank the intersection of Orange Street and La Jolla Avenue and feature ornate fenestration, fascinating turrets, and nearly identical floor plans and features. The number of identical twin 1930s French Normandy and Chateau-esque buildings is dwindling in Los Angeles, and the loss of either of these buildings would be a true shame. Councilmember Koretz asks you to support the designation of the HCM status for these two buildings. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Questions or comments, members? Hearing none, Mr. Miguel, I'll ask that you read instructions for item number 3.
Sure. Item 3, Councilman, concur with the Cultural Heritage Commission and approve the inclusion of the Orange Street Gateway Chateau South, located at 6400 West Orange Street and 655 through 657 South La Jolla Avenue in the list of historic cultural monuments.
Without objection, would you read instruction for item number 4?
For item 4, Councilman, concur with the Cultural Heritage Commission and approve the inclusion of the Orange Street Gateway Chateau North, located at 6401 West Orange Street and 621 through 623 South La Jolla Avenue in the list of historic cultural monuments.
Excellent. Without objection, that'll be the order that takes us to item number 6.
As to item 6, Councilman, this is a report from the City Planning Commission. It includes a vesting zone change and an appeal by Rosita Lopez. She's appealing 2 land use entitlements, a master conditional use, and the site plan review for a mixed-use 228 residential building.
Thank you. Report from Department of City Planning.
Hi, good afternoon, council members. I'm Jordan Turner from the Department of City Planning. The project before you today is an appeal of the City Planning Commission's approval of a vesting zone change, master conditional use, and site plan review for a 7-story mixed-use building containing 228 residential units and approximately 54,000 square feet of commercial area in Council District 1. Just to note, 5% of those units will be set aside for moderate income families. Regarding the appeal, all the appeal points submitted by the appellant pertain to the adopted M&D for the project, but not the related master conditional use or site plan review entitlements, nor the related findings that were approved by the City Planning Commission. Specifically, the appeal addresses specific concerns and focuses on the adequacy of the M&D. Staff has submitted a response to the appellant's appeal points dated September 20th, 2019. Staff would like to reiterate that the accompanying environmental document was adopted by the advisory agency on February 23rd, 2018. and was found adequate by the City Planning Commission at its June 24th, 2019, as part of their action to approve the entitlements. Additionally, staff would like to know that the accompanying vesting zone change was not appealed by the applicant and is also in front of the committee for its consideration. In conclusion, staff recommends the following. Find that the MND was adequate as adopted by the advisory agency on February 23, 2018, and pursuant to CEQA guidelines sections, that no subsequent EIR, negative declaration, or addendum is required for the approval of the project. Deny the appeal and sustain the City Planning Commission's determination. Approve the vesting zone change from C2-1 and R4-1 to TQ-RAS4-1, and adopt the attached conditions of approval and findings. This concludes my presentation. I'm available for any questions if you have any.
Thank you so much. All right, now we'll hear from our appellant. We got a representative from Ms. Lopez.
Hi, my name is Claudia Medina, and I'm here representing the appellant. So first on the CEQA issue, a lead agency cannot defer to an inferior body unless the municipal code expressly allows that delegation to the inferior body, according to California Clean Energy versus City of San Jose. So here, nowhere in the municipal code does this lead agency, which is elected, allow a delegation of CEQA clearance to an inferior body. In addition to that, as you all know, you guys just adopted ordinance allowing CEQA appeals. Like, it's very late in the game. So that means that prior to today, because that ordinance 186254, just goes into effect today. That means that prior to today, there was nothing in the books to allow us to appeal any CEQA determination. So that means that this city is using the wrong standard. So it allowed an inferior decision-making body that's not elected, that had no authority to make a determination on CEQA to do so, and failed to give the public an opportunity to appeal because there's nothing in the books that allowed us to do that. So how will we do that? So that's why we appealed when we could, because, again, there was nothing in the books. There is now. So additionally, the MND fails to take into account the cumulative effects of losing 32 units of RSO housing. This project is bringing market rate housing and moderate income housing to an area where a family of four makes about $26,000 a year. The moderate income housing is affordable to a family of four making $87,700. So that means that this project, 228 units, is unaffordable to people in the community, which will lead to direct displacement and indirect displacement. So all this talk about, we're building more affordable units, at least we're quicker than other cities. That's no consolation to current constituents, council members that are being displaced every day in your district. And there are no mitigation measures even considered to protect current constituents. So that's part of the reason that the MND is not sufficient, because it does not address the cumulative and significant impacts on the loss of housing stock directly and indirectly. So, for example, some of the questions that it should be considering, according to the city's 2013 housing needs assessment, 17,635 rent control units have been lost since 2001, and that will continue to increase. There is no assessment of the current RSO housing stock in the area and how much RSO housing stock will be lost as a result of this project and other related projects. For example, other things. How many tenants are ending up homeless or ending up outside of the city because of projects like these that cause direct and indirect displacement? What are project and related project traffic, air quality, and carbon footprint impacts as displacement of low-income renters, and you will hear from them today, translates into reduced mass transit use locally, and for displaced workers that are now forced to take longer commutes to work? What are project and project-related traffic, air quality, and carbon footprint impacts of affluent renters that this project will bring in, since they don't typically use mass transit the way that current low-income families that will be displaced use mass transit. So for me, even if as someone that grew up, I'm a native Angelino, I was displaced out of Silver Lake, now I'm watching mass displacement throughout all our neighborhoods of low-income families. Even if I want to think that the councilman for this area really believes that the solution is building our way out of the housing market, building our way out of the housing crisis, even if I want to believe that and I don't just assume, oh, he's so pro-developer, he's so pro-development, that must be it. But maybe if, I give him more credit, maybe it's because he really thinks that we could build our way out of this crisis. You still have an obligation to your current constituents that are being forced out of CD1 on a daily basis. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We have a representative for the applicant.
So I was the representative.
You represented for the appellant.
Appellant, sorry.
And you satisfied that.
Mylan Garrett, Maximum Development, representative for the applicant. I'd like to make a note, and I think staff had clearly noted this, that the time for a appeal of the sequel matter of the MND has lapsed, and they did not make a timely appeal. The decision was gone before the advisory agency. The final approval date was the final appeal date was March 5th of 2018. A notice of termination had not been filed with the county recorder, and therefore the MND time for appeal was 180 days from that date. Therefore, in September 2018 was the date to file a timely appeal. That did not happen, so therefore all the points that she is making in regards to the sequel matter is moot. We're happy to answer any other questions you have regarding the site plan review, the conditional use permit, and the other entitlements that were awarded with this project, but those regarding the MND shall not be and should not be considered. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. All right, now we'll open it up to public comment on this matter. Mr. Turner, if you could do me a little favor and just move a little bit to the left or right. So thank you so much. For 1 minute each, Jose Felix Cabrera Larios, Margarita Lopez, Steve Kim, Milan Garrison.
Mr. Larios needs translation, so I could volunteer to translate unless you guys want to offer somebody to do so. He needs Spanish language translation.
Do we have unprejudiced translation?
We're working that out. Thank you.
Sure, I'll translate. Yeah. Go ahead. Continúe, señor.
Buenas tardes a todos y todos. Mi nombre es José Félix Cabrera.
Good afternoon. My name is José Luis Cabrera.
Soy de la coalición para una vivienda equitativa.
I am from the Coalition for Equitable Housing.
Estoy completamente consternado de que nuestro concejal Gil Cedillo no esté protegiendo a nuestras comunidades pobres.
I am very concerned that our councilman, Mr. Cedillo, is not concerned about our community.
Simplemente está aprobando los proyectos para gente rica que puede pagar una renta elevada.
He is approving projects for people that are high income and can afford to pay that rent.
Estos edificios que están en el 1025 y 1035 de la Sur Menlo cuentan con 32 unidades.
These units are located at 1025 and 1035 South Menlo and contain 32 units.
En este momento están en control de renta con familias pobres.
Currently, they're under rent control and low-income residents live there.
Hoy están a punto de aprobar este proyecto de 228 unidades de lujo para familias de 4 personas.
Today, we are here considering a project with 228 units for luxury housing.
Ganando $87,000 al año.
Earning $87,000 a year.
Nuestra comunidad no tendrá la oportunidad de disfrutar este proyecto,
Our community will not have the ability to enjoy this project.
ya que nuestra comunidad está en en esta área que gana menos de $20,000 al año.
given that many of our residents live in an area where they earn $25,000.
Queremos que nuestro concejal revise este proyecto y sea equitativo.
We want our councilman to review this project.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Margarita López, soy de la Coalición para una Vivienda Equitativa. Y yo la verdad sí estoy enojada con nuestro concejal.
Un momento, señora. ¿Su nombre?
Margarita López.
My name is Margarita Lopez. I am from the Coalition of Equitable Housing, and we're very upset at our councilman.
Porque ¿cómo es posible que en nuestra área existan este tipo de proyectos tan grandes para personas que ganan $80,700 para obtener este tipo de viviendas?
How is it possible that this project is for people that make $87,000 in our neighborhood?
Cuando esta área es pobre y ganan menos, hasta $16,000 al año ganan.
¿Cuánto dijo?
$16,000.
How could this be the case when we live in a neighborhood where the median income is $16,000?
El concejal se acordará de que él me prometió de que iba a revisar proyectos para tener una vivienda equitativa para nuestra comunidad.
Our councilman must remember that he promised to review this project for equitable housing in the neighborhood.
Y lo que ha hecho son talleres informativos para sus derechos de los inquilinos.
And what he has done is workshops for fair housing in the neighborhood.
Para cuando los desalojen.
Whenever we are displaced.
Y lo que queremos son viviendas asequibles,
And what we need is housing that is accessible to all.
Y que no mandemos a nuestra gente a las calles.
And that we don't displace more residents in the neighborhood.
A pesar de ello, sigo creyendo en usted, concejal, y espero que tengamos vivienda asequible.
And even though all this is happening, we still believe in our councilman and we want equitable housing.
Good afternoon. My name is Steve Kim. I'm an architect for the project, and I'm here to answer some of the questions if you have regarding design. Thank you.
Thank you. Jairo Zelaya, Evangelina Zelaya, Maria Machuca, Marina del Carmen Paz, Maria Aguirre, Jose Savido. If I called your name, you can come to the center aisle to prepare to speak.
Hello, my name is Jairo Zelaya. I'm speaking on behalf of the tenants. Here to speak on behalf of the tenants of 1025 and 1035 Menlo. Many of us have been living here for more than 20 years. Most of the residents are elderly children, but most of all families. It's unfair that this project to be approved is going to be displacing all these low-income families out on the street. These apartments have been our home in Koreatown. It's easy to approve and suggest projects when it's not your family on the line. More families are being displaced and being put in homes. I suggest a plan committee to revise this project and see it to be inequitable for the tenants and families living in these units. Thank you.
Muy buenas tardes, me llamo Marina Pérez. Yo soy una inquilina de 27 años allí en la 1025 y no es justo que no hagan nada por nosotros. Yo no quiero andar viviendo como jongle, ya suficiente con los que hay. Apóyenos, por favor. Gracias.
My name is Marina Perez. I've been living in resident unit number 7. I've been living there for 27 years. I see it unfairly to be having to deal with this project that is going to be displacing us, displacing my family, and up to the point where we can be homeless, and we don't want that, and we wish that you will support us or can support us in this decision.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es María Machuca. Yo vivo en el 1035 Menlo por 36 años y la verdad es muy difícil porque Es toda una vida la que he vivido ahí. Muchas gracias.
My name is Maria Machuca. I've been living there for 36 years, at 1035 Menlo. (1035) Menlo. Been living there for 36 years. And to support us in this decision to disapprove this project.
Thank you.
Buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Evangelina Zelaya y vivo en el 1025 Sur Menlo Avenue. Y ya tengo 30 años de vivir ahí. Y somos unas personas de bajos recursos y no podemos pagar demasiada renta. Así es que por eso hemos venido aquí a esta reunión para ver si nos ayudan. ¿Ok? Hacen buenas tardes.
Thank you. Mr. Mejia, people got to speak for themselves. I'm sorry. Mr. Mejia, can you give us a synopsis of what was just said?
Yes, basically she has reiterated the same comments as before. She lives on Menlo. She has lived there over 27 years and is a low-income resident and does not want to be displaced.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Does that conclude the list of folks that I've called? I've called your name, come on up. If not, we'll move on because I got a few names here where people haven't come up. Okay. Mr. Turner, do you want to respond to any of the comments?
Just in general, from a planning standpoint, the zone change does not increase the density of the project. So both C2 and R4 allow the same density that the proposed RES4 zone would allow. So there's no increase in what the developer can do today in terms of residential units. Also, the application was deemed complete before Measure JJJ was passed, and so it's not subject to any provisions of JJJ. Also, they're not asking for, as I mentioned, a density bonus increase or anything else, so there's no requirement for affordability. The 5% was a suggestion from the Council District 1 that was memorialized by our City Planning Commission after conversation, a robust conversation, I should say, with the applicants. In addition, there were 2 City Planning Commission hearings. In between both those hearings, our City Planning Commission asked the applicants to work with the tenants in terms of being relocated to maybe other units that the applicant owns on sort of on a one-for-one, like-for-like basis. And from my understanding, and the applicants can shed more light on how many tenants have availed themselves of it, but at that time, only one tenant availed themselves of being relocated to another building that the applicant owned. Additionally, with all of our replacement units, every applicant is bound by the Ellis Act. And so regardless of what they want to do, there is an overriding municipal code and law that they have to abide by regardless. And so those tenants who are still there will receive relocation benefits. And so our track map has memorialized that condition, and regardless of what was being proposed, if the units were to be removed, the applicant would have to abide by the Ellis Act. And so if you need any more light on the issues, I'm here.
Thank you so much. Mr. Cedillo.
Yes, unfortunately, the opposition filings were late, as was indicated earlier. These tenants deserve more than late filings, and rhetoric is simply inadequate with respect to this matter. The question is whether or not there's a sufficient mitigation for the tenants, and it is our understanding that they are being offered one-on-one replacement in the area with comparable rates. The developer has other units that are in the community and is willing to offer them comparable rates. The numbers are that he will also at site have 5%, and so different numbers are thrown out. Somebody says the median income is $25,000, some say $16,000, so we're looking at about $40,000. The median income, the AMI in that area is $30,000. Yes, it is a low-income area, but it will remain low-income unless we change the composition. The only way to change the composition is to have the housing that's available for that without displacement. So we are going from 32 units to 228 units, I believe. And so that's how you change the vitality of the community without having displacement on those who live there. So you can shake your head, but that does not change the reality. Clearly, not building is not a solution, as we've heard all day, to the challenges that confront the city with respect to homelessness and affordability. Building affordability, which I'm proud to say that we are number one in the city, is the solution to that, and we will continue to be competitive in that effort with all of you, my colleagues, to make sure that affordable is in our district and available. But if you look at the maps that we looked at today, you'll note that it is also only our districts, all due respect, Mr. Blumenfield, Mr. Lee, that has the developments and the affordabilities are all in our part of the city, and we will accept that as the realities that we ran for office for. Other than that, I believe that the staff has given the analysis that reflects the reality, and we're prepared to move the project forward.
All right. Any other comments, members? Thank you, Mr. Cedillo. Nothing from Mr. Lee or Mr. Blumenfield. Ms.
Respond to the ad hominem attack. I won't take the bait.
Mr. Blumenfield is reserving comment for another day. Mr. Mejia, we have instructions that we want to move before the members.
Yes, Councilman. Instruction 1, approve the vesting zone change ordinance. 2, deny the appeal by Rosita Lopez of the Coalition for Equitable Westlake MacArthur Park, thereby sustain the Planning Commission's approval of the master conditional use permit, site plan review, and the environmental clearance, the mitigated negative deck, and CEQA findings for the property located at 1000 South Vermont Avenue, subject to the modified conditions of approval.
Excellent. It's been moved. I'll second.
Excuse me, Terry Kaufman, Messiah City Attorney's Office. You also have to make a finding, since the M&D was previously adopted, that there's no new information that would lead to a finding of significant adverse impact for the project.
Excellent. So we'll include such a finding in our consideration now. It's been moved and seconded. Mr. Lee?
Second.
Mr. Lee seconds. Hearing no objection, that'll be the order. Thank you, Mr. Mejia. That moves us to item number 7. Thank you, Mr. Turner.
Councilman, item 7 is a Sustainable Communities Environmental Assessment, SKIA, the associated CEQA findings and the mitigated measures, and the mitigation monitoring program. This is an item that contains 4 appeals as to the various land use entitlements, the environmental findings, the density bonus, the conditional use, and the site plan review for a 100% senior housing project.
Good afternoon. Jenna Monterosa with Planning. The project before you is the Montecito 2 project located in Hollywood. It involves the construction of a 6-story, 68-unit senior affordable apartment building that will be constructed on the same property of an existing Montecito apartment building, which is a designated historic cultural monument that currently contains 118 existing senior affordable and non-conforming units. What is before you is an appeal of the City Planning Commission's actions to approve a density bonus, conditional use, and site plan review for the Montecito 2. As was mentioned, a total of 4 appeals have been filed against the project. All appellants are current residents within the Montecito. Staff has prepared a written response to the submitted appeal points that have been uploaded to the council file for this case. Submitted appeal points generally restate the issues and comments that were raised and addressed during the adoption process of the project SKIA, and also during the City Planning Commission's meeting that considered the project's land use entitlements. As a whole, we find that the appeals fail to consider the whole of the record, which includes detailed CEQA analysis, conditions of approval, and findings. Upon review of the submitted appeals, Planning finds that they do not present evidence to support the City Planning Commission erred or abused their discretion. Therefore, it is recommended that the Planning and Land Use Management Committee, the City Council, deny all submitted appeals and sustain the determination of the City Planning Commission. And I apologize for my voice.
No worries. Thank you so much. If you could slide a little bit to the side so we can see the clock. So we have for 5 minutes. City Attorney, we have 5 appellants.
4, Councilman.
4 appellants. Is that 5 minutes each?
Well, you have discretion to make that a little less, but you have to give the applicant equal time. So if you give them 20 minutes, applicant gets 20 minutes.
All right, so we'll do a total of 15 minutes for the 4 applicants, and we'll give 15 minutes to the applicant. So the first appellant we're calling forward is Dennis Luna.
Yes, good afternoon, committee. My name is Dennis Luna. I'm a Montecito resident for almost 2 years. I oppose the Montecito 2 project because it will disrupt my life for 2 years. We, the existing tenants of the Montecito, our needs were ignored. My unit faces west and south, where construction activities will be felt the greatest. Both my mental and physical health will be threatened. My independence will be jeopardized. The underutilized property is too small for development and sits on 2 earthquake faults. This underutilized property is an urban oasis for the community. Green space is just as important as affordable housing, especially in overbuilt Hollywood. Climate change is a reality. Think of what effect the recent Amazon forest fires has on planet Earth. Find a more appropriate site for affordable housing that will minimize environmental damage. I pay my rent and deserve quiet enjoyment. Thank you.
Thank you. Stephen Samble.
Kathleen Larson is his representative, and we'll continue with his.
One more time?
I'm Kathleen Larson, Friends of the Montecito, and I'm continuing Dennis's presentation.
Okay, I don't have you down here, Ms. Larson. I have Stephen Samble, Kevin Kelly.
Sir, I'm down as his representative.
Who's representative?
From Dennis Luna. And
Did Dennis Luna just speak?
Dennis Luna is speaking, and he couldn't finish, so I am finishing his presentation for him. Okay, you'll see before you a picture of the Montecito apartments. The problem is there's not enough space to do all these things. There's also have been multiple problems with this. There is a noise report. We got a noise person. The presentation was terrible. It did not hit the right areas. We object to the entitlements, the density bonus. This is a unique property. It is a National Historic Monument, but it is the entire property, the 150 feet by 225 feet that have been designated as a national one. And we have in your packet the designation on that. And with that, you could not do what they have proposed to do. We want the committee to know that there's been ignoring the fact that 120 people will be living on this property in the middle of a construction site. And even though they have some conditional things, we have not found out what are they going to do to handle these people. There are 2 of the 3 exits that are blocked with construction. They have not involved the people on this. And with this, we ask you to deny the project. Thank you.
Thank you. We have Stephen Samble, Kevin Kelly, or Stuart Farquhar.
And Stephen Samble, and his representative is coming with him, Susan Hanold.
Hi, my name is Stephen Samble. I've been a resident of the Montecito, excuse me, for the past 12 years. I'm also a retired meteorologist, and in 1987, I received the credential of Certified Consulting Meteorologist from the American Meteorological Society. As such, I have some quarrels with the CPC and its staff because I don't believe they perform due diligence in not evaluating all of the submitted opposition material and not evaluating the efficacy and validity of the submitted studies. And for the bulk of my presentation, I'll turn it over to Susan Honnold, who's my representative.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Number 1,
Diesel idling within 1,000 feet of sensitive receptors is prohibited. Staging and queuing areas are also not to be located within 1,000 feet of sensitive receptors. These potential issues are not addressed in the SKIA nor in the letter of August 27th from the law offices of Gaines and Stacy LLP to the Plum Committee. Number 2, the Montecito is within the emission area and its population is largely elderly and vulnerable. The Canyon School and the co-located Las Palmas Senior Center are within 20 feet of the western boundary of the project. Enormous new buildings with more than 500 new units being constructed are just within 2 square blocks of the project. There is also an existing 2-story apartment building just 5 feet south of the Montecito parking lot. The project itself and the effects of these nearby buildings, as well as the Montecito, will produce chaotic wind patterns that make air quality concentrations hard to model. Air pollutant concentrations cannot be assessed as though the site were a standalone project. Therefore, the localized significance threshold methodology, a canned approach, cannot be applied to such a complicated site. Number 3, the traffic analysis is over 3 years old and it is no longer representative of either current or future conditions. Future traffic estimates were made in 2016 and assume only a 1% annual increase in the number of cars for the 2 years ending in 2018. Cumulative impacts of traffic due to all the new units coming online need to be redone, particularly along Franklin Avenue, Las Palmas Avenue, and the intersection between Franklin and Cherokee. Traffic is frequently bumper to bumper on Franklin Avenue. The steep Franklin Avenue-Cherokee Avenue intersection is particularly dangerous. Additional vehicles will make the intersection even more dangerous for cars and impaired seniors. Number 4, the proposed project is located on a steep grade area with the steepest grade on Cherokee Avenue. This presents an additional modeling challenge. Measurements of ambient air concentrations are needed to assess air pollutant concentrations in the vicinity of the Montecito, at the Senior Center, and the intersection between Franklin and Cherokee Avenue. Number 5, acoustical barriers required for buildings south of the project and at the Canyon School Senior Center site will be of no benefit to a multi-level building north of the project site or at the Montecito to the immediate east. There are no mitigation measures proposed for the existing Montecito building in the SKIA. Mitigation measure NOI-MM3, which requires line-of-sight acoustical barriers to the Cherokee Avenue residences, does not provide for a mitigated condition at the existing Montecito. Thus, it must be acknowledged that the Montecito building will experience noise levels at the unmitigated calculated level 79 dBA. Thus, the majority of the occupants will be experiencing construction noise in the unmitigated calculated condition, which does trigger a significant impact. The City of LA...
You know what? I think they're going to cut your time because they did not give us the full 20 minutes, so we are altering our presentation, and Kevin Kelly will be next.
Okay, you want me to stop? Okay.
So yeah, you
My name is Kevin Kelly. I'm a Montecito resident. I'm in my 25th year at the Montecito. I've been here before Thomas Saffron acquired the property. I became a resident due to my disability. I work daily to keep my medical condition stable. I've talked to vets with PTSD at the Montecito. We're all concerned that the proposed inappropriate project will seriously impact our physical, emotional, mental health, destroy the progress that we've worked so hard to achieve, cause unnecessary hardship to our fellow vulnerable elderly citizens. Look at the noise study from the administrative rather than the technical angle. City planning accepted hook, line, and sinker everything from the developer's consultant to impact sciences. That was well to do. We will just cut and paste some other reports. Need a report? Here's a report. Data from 2 different companies. No name or signature. Need a memo to answer a lawyer's challenge to do a noise study? Here's the memo. It was easy to say the city got what the city needed, and the city okays it all. But was it right? Morally right? All applicant submissions missed 120 residents sequestered on the construction site. No human being responsible for the memo regarding sound study. Effects on the 10-story, the same as the 2-story. Landlords of the 2-story to the south submitted a report from acoustical expert Aaron Petit of Anatoc. Report states, Impact Science's basic noise study and memo are both so flawed they cannot be relied upon. As an applicant, I object to the cumulative density bonus of 226% of specific adverse impact on public health and safety of the noise during construction, which has not been properly studied or analyzed and so could not be mitigated to the less than significant under Los Angeles Municipal Code, LAMC 1222A 25 and Government Code 65915. Next, let's examine the bastardization of the historical nature of the Montecito. The Cultural Heritage Commission, CHC, unrelated to the proposed project, updated seamless to give city honors to national, state, historic, cultural monuments. The CHC determined unanimously that the designation was to be for the entire 150 times 225 feet property, not just the building. The entire property site was designated what the lot contained. It's in 1985 registration. Unfortunately, the developer's representative, CD13, and the prior Plum chairman distorted the picture, and the city, asked by the Office of Historic Resources and the Department of City Planning, accepted the distortion, as did the City Planning Commission. Other consultants, advisors also deserve credit for the distortion. It was easy to rape the historic land by changing the description as what is historic. Worked in a forced Plum amendment, and pretend city HCM definition obliterates the national state actual designation. It doesn't work. But that's all of the above have tried to do. It was easy. Was it right? No. As an applicant, I object to the density bonus, affordable housing incentives waivers, because they will have a specific adverse impact with no practical mitigation possible upon any real property that is listed in the California Register of Historical Resources and do not meet what is required by LAMC 1222 825E2. The proposed incentive waivers are contrary.
Ask you to begin to wrap up your thoughts. So yeah, I was just going to ask you to finish your last thought. So the last speaker.
Okay. Well, it's just basically that, you know, I hope you approve the pending appeals, deny the project, and take the necessary steps to give the correct HCM status designation to the Montecito. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, honorable members. I'd like to request my entire 5 minutes as a single appellant, please.
Go ahead, proceed.
Thank you. My name is Stuart Farquhar. I'm a 15-year resident. Honorable members, good morning, good afternoon. Today we have a unique opportunity for a makeover from a recent CPC decision and a previous Plum regarding the proposed Montecito 2 facility and their project. To facilitate this opportunity, I respectfully request that this newly constituted Plum Committee recommend that the City Council approve the pending appeals, deny the proposed project, and restore the correct HCM designation in effect since July 18, 1985. This is in accordance with staff recommendation and CHC's unanimous decision of September 18, 2018. All appeals in this case were filed in a timely manner. The July 18, 2019 letter of determination issued by the CPC states that the Commission made numerous findings and adopted the SCA at its July 11, 2019 meeting. Therefore, the CPC's findings and adoption of the SCA are appealable. I urge this committee to examine the facts, not just take anyone's word for it. CPC was negligent. The CPC did not review the entire administrative record. It relied on flawed staff reports and oral presentations. I and other residents will be subjected to and suffering from continuous vehicle noise activity and its pollution for the construction in 24 months by actions instigated by either the landlord, developer, TSA, or by actions through its agents with only one safe exit. Traffic on Franklin Avenue all day into the late evening, 7 days a week, is noisy bumper-to-bumper caravan as an alternate shortcut to the Hollywood Freeway North entrance. Noise-sensitive receptor, the CPC's decision failed to adequately identify the historic Montecito property and its environs as a noise-sensitive receptor. There is no tenant habitability program in place, because contrary to assertions you may hear by others, and according to LADBS and HCIDLA, the property was quietly taken off RSO November 2011 and placed in low and very low income status. Additional density approved by the CPC not permitted in a CRA area. TSA received CRA funding in 1996 and 2011. You can look at Kelly 3 of the handouts. This project falls within the jurisdiction of the CRA and its successor agency. Approval and construction of this project would subject TSA and the city to prosecution under California Penal Code 368, elder abuse, a violation of which is punishable by imprisonment in a county jail not exceeding 1 year, or by a fine for the basics, but can be held higher at higher levels. The city and the developer are now aware of this. Earthquake. The Montecito property is within an Alquist Priolo zone and lies on very close to the Hollywood fault. TSA's published drawings dimensions do not provide for earth movement mitigation as was required by a project less than 300 feet away. Look at FARCA 4 for that. ADA compliance. No independent ADA approved exit from the proposed building for any mobility impaired or wheelchair resident. Public Resources Code 21155.1, the state's Sustainable Communities Law, the city is approving under PRC, which says the project can only be approved if 5, transit priority project does not have a significant effect on a historical resource pursuant to section 21084.1. By removal of open space, the city claims that there's no significant effect is clearly false. Since the City Council, through its various entities, is invoking state law PRC 21084.1, PRC 21155.1 also explicitly states the project qualifies if the transit priority project is not subject to the following: D, seismic risk. The Montecito's property is close proximity to the Hollywood Fault. A report from the California Geological Survey that covers faults in LA defines the proximity.
Can you wrap up?
2 minutes left, please.
Can you wrap up?
I'm sorry?
Can you wrap up? Finish your thoughts?
Yes, I have. I've got one sentence left to do.
One sentence. Great. Thank you.
TSA ignores its credos and goals. TLA violates at least the first and third credo bullets, again, Luna 1. I believe TSA's founder, though, when he wrote them, he meant them, but he's semi-retired. Others who now represent his company by their statements and actions may longer share his original vision. I have confidence that the various council bodies will understand the serious issues and flaws with this project eventually. What happens if eventually becomes too late?
Thank you for your testimony. Thank you for your testimony. You're beyond one sentence now. Please take your seat. Thank you. All right, for 15 minutes, we'll ask our applicant representative.
Good afternoon, council members. We will not take 15 minutes, probably about 5. Our land use attorney, Mr. Gaines, is also going to address a couple of the technical points. For the record, my name is Dana Sales with 360, representing Tom Saffron and Associates. On behalf of the applicant, the claims that you're hearing today are baseless and need to be categorically dismissed by this committee. The case before you today is a culmination of a 3-year process that we've been in with the city, with diligent research, collaboration, community outreach, in order just to provide some affordable housing in Hollywood. The Montecito Project will serve a senior community by expanding a current campus at the historic Montecito 2 property on a parking lot and a portion of their property that is currently undeveloped. Saffron has built over 6,000 residents in Southern California, including 474 affordable housing units and another 185 under construction within Hollywood. The need is great. The average wait list for their properties is 2 to 7 years. The Montecito's wait list has been closed for over 4 years, and they continue to get calls for people wanting to move into this property. This is an extremely complicated venture for only 68 units. The project has been thoroughly vetted by all city departments, including city planning, building and safety, the grading division, urban design studio, Department of Transportation, BOE, Rec and Parks, and the Office of Historic Resources. The SKIA for this project was approved by this City Council in February of this year, and the statute of limitations challenge that SKIA has since run. The parcel map for the project was approved and not appealed in May, and the City Planning Commission unanimously approved this project in July. For 2.5 years, people in this community have been trying to stop this project and shaming the applicant for trying to provide some public benefit housing on a site that's already used for just that purpose. As such, this project, for all intents and purposes, has literally become the poster child for affordable housing streamlining in this city. It demonstrates the need for housing and just how hard it is to get something like this done to create special needs housing. The City Planning Commission also took some great offense at the opposition aimed at this venture. The appellants in this case are all existing residents of the Montecito who have the privilege of living in this community, yet are intent on preventing others, other needy seniors, from enjoying the same safe home that they do. This is an important project in a community where housing prices continue to rise and the need for stabilized rents is infinite. Our team has been conducting community outreach also for 2 years, starting back in 2017, with more than 22 meetings with the Neighborhood Council, Hollywood Heritage, the Hollywood Chamber, neighboring residents at the Canyon School. Actually, as part of our efforts with the Canyon School, which was brought up by one of the appellants, we have developed a construction management and tenant habitability plan to mitigate any disruption to existing residents and adjacent seniors at the building and in the preschool. Those measures include noise and air quality mitigation, off-site construction parking, construction communication protocols, a final construction management plan and tenant habitability plan in accordance with our conditions of approval will be submitted to the Department of City Planning for review and approval prior to the issuance of any permits. As I stated, we have support from most of the major organizations in the community, as well as the Hollywood Network Coalition, and broad-based support from affordable housing coalitions and advocates throughout the city. There's no more appropriate location for senior housing than on a site that is already used for affordable senior housing. The provision of 68 new senior housing units will allow longtime residents of this community to age in the neighborhood without fear of displacement, surrounded by their friends, community, shops, and cafes. Therefore, on behalf of Tom Saffron and Associates and our entire team, I urge you to please disregard the testimony, allow this project to move forward, and deny all the appeals in front of you. At this point, Mr. Gaines is going to address some of the technical points regarding the SKIA. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, honorable members. Fred Gaines on behalf of the applicant. There was a letter submitted at the last moment, was posted today to the website, a 20-page letter from Mr. Farquhar, who raises a number of issues related to the environmental review on this. None of the issues are new. All of the issues have been previously addressed in my correspondence to you dated August 27th, which includes the citations to the various sections of the in this case, we used a SKIA, a Sustainable Communities Environmental Assessment, which went through full public process and was adopted by the City Council in February of this year. That document, as well as my letter of August 27th, include all the citations to the noise studies, the air quality studies that were done to ensure that the project is mitigated to a level of insignificance based on South Coast Air Quality Management District standards, city standards, and so forth. On this project, I want this committee to approve the project. I want them to thank staff for expediting as much as they did. It still took a long time, but staff was was helpful in trying to expedite it. Because I want this committee, when a 100% affordable senior project comes to you in Hollywood, to say, of course we want this project, and we want to get it done, and we want to get it open as soon as possible. So I want you to approve it. I want you to thank staff and say, staff, keep expediting these projects and getting them to us. And I hope that you'll look at some of at our opposition. Our only opposition here are tenants in subsidized affordable housing owned by my client next door who are saying, I don't want to have 68 more units of what I live in and enjoy right next door. It's outrageous, quite frankly. Now, if we had not mitigated their concerns, if we had said to them, go jump in a lake, but that's not what we did. The noise, the air, there'll be construction. Construction will be inconvenient when it's next to you, but every mitigation that is required to reduce the noise, to control these effects. If you're going to say we can't add low-income housing because there's going to be construction and there's going to be some noise, then you're never going to solve this problem. And we have gone through everything, including a tenant habitability program. If there's a tenant that needs to be moved because they are sensitive to this particular thing, we'll move them to another unit. If they need a service, a mental health service, these are all provided for in these mitigations. There is absolutely no reason to give any weight to these objections. Today we're being accused of criminal charges, that we're doing elder abuse by building 68 new low-income affordable units of senior housing. It is completely outrageous, and I hope this committee will say this is not going to fly here. That's exactly, by the way, what your City Planning Commission said. One by one by one, they said, this is exactly what we want, and we're not going to put up with this kind of opposition. So we ask that you approve this. The studies have been done. This is a fantastic project. It is exactly what we need and what you want in the city of Los Angeles. And the fact that it takes as long as it does and that hundreds of thousands of extra dollars of costs are added to these projects to address this type of opposition is something that I would hope that the committee would attempt to direct staff and avoid in the future. I thank you very much. We are here to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you so much. We have a number of public comment speakers on this item. We'll begin with Corey Schmidt, Christine Ronhell, Minister Shorty, Randy Hare. 1 minute each, going once, going twice. Some of you all are here, I see you.
Minister Max Shorty here, Community Repower Movement. I'm in support of this. When you ride the streets of Los Angeles and you see senior citizen people sleeping at bus stops, that's inhumane. It bothers me. It weakens my heart. When we have someone who comes into a city and wants to build, wants to take those people off of the bus benches, off of the streets of Los Angeles, I'd rather that than we find them dead on a bus stop. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Christine Rangel from the Building Industry Association. We are here today to show our support of this 100% affordable project. This project will keep our most vulnerable off the street. This is a project that already has a waiting list of over 850 applicants, so we know that it's needed to people living here. And it has support from the Hollywood Heritage, Chamber of Commerce, Hollywood Network Coalition. It promotes the historic integrity of the Montecito and is a suitable location because it's already the site of affordable senior housing. We have over 50,000 people sleeping on the street and families choosing between paying rent and having a meal. This project will keep the most vulnerable seniors off the street. We must welcome construction noise as a small price to pay for housing our population. Construction noise is temporary. Dying on the street alone is forever. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Randy Herr. I am a 2.5-year tenant of the Montecito building and a 9-year Section 8 tenant, having been on disability since 2002, permanent Social Security SSI. I strongly oppose the approval and construction of the Montecito project by Thomas Safran et al. As a 2.5-year disabled resident. I oppose this misguided project because destruction versus preservation. The Montecito 2 will permanently destroy a registered historic site and its garden and permanently impact a classic Hollywood landmark and its garden oasis, one of the last open space gardens and bird nest areas in Hollywood. It will severely reduce the quality of life during construction and afterwards of the Montecito tenants currently. It will reduce our quality of life, our safety, and our general health for the property owner's benefit.
Thank you. Alina Davudian, Fred Gaines, Doug Haynes, Lisa Morris.
Hello, I'm here to speak about, I'm the property manager from Montecito.
Can you tell us your name?
Alina Davudian.
Thank you.
And I would like to speak about the great need that we have for affordable housing. Daily basis, I receive calls, 10, 15 calls that they're asking for affordable housing. As they mentioned before, the wait list is closed. It's going to be closed for the next few years as well. Interestingly enough, I had a call this last week, few management properties. They called me asking when we are going to open up the wait list for our new construction that is not even approved, but the word is out. So people, they are in need of affordable housing. I encourage all my residents. I do understand it's going to be difficult, but if we tolerate all this construction that is going on around us, we have to be positive about this construction as well, because we are going to give housing to another 68 elderly people that they're in need of affordable housing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Lisa Morris, and I have no comment because I checked the wrong item number. Sorry.
Hi, my name is Doug Haynes. I can't top that last comment, but on this issue, it really bothers me when highly paid, self-serving lobbyists make cheap shots and mock and try to publicly shame individuals who had the courage to come out and spend many years going through this process and have tried to reach out to the community and tried to understand this very difficult process just because they're afraid of what's going to happen to them, and that's a legitimate concern. There will be significant impacts to the people who live there. They're elderly, many of them are in tremendously poor health, and those issues need to be addressed and not just set aside. This project itself is right on top of an earthquake fault line. That's not disputed. It is active according to other determinations made by the city, and it also would impact resource on the California Register of Historic Places. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else that we called? If not, Ms. Morris. Oh, what? Okay. You guys, you got to be ready.
Actually, I signed up at 2
Well,
o'clock.
what's your name?
Orrin Feldman. I'm here.
Okay, see, I haven't called you, Mr. Feldman. I'm just asking for the people that I called. There are a couple people I called that haven't stood up yet. I'll get to you if your name is here. Jacqueline Sadhar, Cameron Siegel, Marcella Glover, and Mr. Feldman to close.
Good afternoon. My name is Marcella Glover. I was afraid I wasn't going to be able to speak. I've got so much to say. I've been the resident of the Montecito for 15 years. I'm turning 70 next month, and I have looked forward to living at the Montecito ever since I've been there. I'm just appalled at my fellow neighbors who would be so concerned about things that have already we've heard several times, and these things have been confirmed that the testing was done correctly, and they want to deny other people affordable living. I don't understand that. You can't live in a garden. People are on bus benches, like the gentleman said. These people need homes. This is an opportunity for people to continue to have affordable living. Please, I beg of you to pass this and just get this over with. Let's do it. There are people that need homes. I am not looking forward to construction, but I know that the TSA will take care of us during that time.
Mr. Harris Dawson, my name is Orrin Feldman. I'm here officially representing Hollywood Hills West Neighborhood Council, your certified neighborhood council for this area. I'm assuming the 1-minute limit doesn't apply, but I won't go much longer than that. Hollywood Hills West Neighborhood Council has considered this proposed project for several years. We've held several meetings. We've had community members, including residents of the Montecito, who have favored it. We have had those who have opposed it. We have worked through the issues as to whether the garden was part of the historic cultural monument. As best we could tell, it wasn't. We've worked through the earthquake issues with the design team and their structural engineers, and we were satisfied for the most part that those issues have been covered satisfactorily. There are some people who felt differently. We had 2 of our 18 voting representatives vote to disapprove or deny this project, but 16 voted to approve it back in February of 2018.
It was strongly supported by our board. We understand that construction is never pleasant or easy, but we think that the overriding need here is for additional affordable elderly housing units. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Did we get Cameron Siegel? Jacqueline Sethard, did we get those folks? All right, going once, going twice. All right, I think that's everybody off of our list. We'll ask, tell me the name. One more time. All right, that person's not on the list, but we'll ask you to come up for 1 minute.
Hello, dear Commissioner. My name is Inna Schwarzer. I came to Montecito 21 years ago. I loved the place, the people, and most of all, I loved the garden. It's an inspiration for me. I understand that affordable housing is very important, but this place is very small. It would be very crowded for us, and we should keep such places like greeneries. We have them not so lot, less and less, and there is medical research, a new one, that says that greenery keeps our health, our mental health, and even keeps people from crime, out of crime. So please,
Thank you.
Don't ruin
that concludes your time. Thank you so much. Mr. Bullock, to represent Council District 13, always with the amazing shirts. Mr. Bullock, welcome.
Good afternoon. My name is Craig Bullock, and I'm with Councilmember Mitch O'Farrell's office. I'm here today to convey the Councilmember's support for the requested entitlements and to ask that the appeals be denied. The Montecito 2 will bring much-needed affordable senior housing to Hollywood. Its close proximity to existing affordable housing on the site and the neighboring Las Palmas Senior Center, which is directly next door, is an ideal location for this type of development. While we can appreciate the inconveniences that developments cause, the benefits that this project offers far outweigh those inconveniences. I would also like to thank the Department of City Planning staff for the Office of Historic Resources and for Jenna Monterosa for their work on this project, and thank you for your consideration.
Thank you so much. Do we have questions or comments, members? Mr. Blumenfield, Mr. Cedillo? All right. Hearing none, I believe we have an action. Mr. Mejia?
Yes, Councilman. The action being to deny the 4 appeals and to sustain the Planning Commission's approval of the following land use entitlements: the master conditional use permit, the density bonus, the site plan review for the properties located at 6650 through 6668 Franklin Avenue and 1855 North Cherokee Avenue, subject to modified conditions of approval, as well as the Sustainable Communities Environmental Assessment, SKIA, the Mitigation Monitoring Program, the mitigation measures, the related CEQA findings, and as well as the finding from the Public Resources Code, Section 21155.2, that the project is a transit priority project, and as well as the findings of the City Planning Commission.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Hearing and seeing no objection to that, that'll be the order. Thank you. That takes us to item number 9.
Item 9, Councilman, and item 10 are interrelated. Item 9 is the appeal.
We can consider them together.
Yes, Councilman. Item 9, Councilman, is an appeal by Daniel Garcia. He's appealing the approval by the Planning Commission of the vesting tract map for 19 single-family units that will be built therein. And item 10, Councilman, is the associated zone change ordinance.
Thank you, Council. My name is Daniel Garcia. I am a resident.
Well, actually, sir, Mr. Garcia, we first hear from the planning staff. We'll call you up when we're ready.
They sent me up here.
That's all right. We won't let the time go by. We'll call you up. So we'll start with our planning staff. Good afternoon. Welcome. The sound?
Let's try the other one.
Switch mics.
Good afternoon, Valentina Knox-Jones with the Department of City Planning. Before you today is the Santa Susana Estates Project, a subdivision of land for the construction of 19 single-family dwellings and preservation of one existing historic dwelling known as the Wilson House, located at 10811 through 10921 North Old Santa Susana Pass Road, located in the Chatsworth community of the San Fernando Valley. Balancing the needs of development in the equestrian community is an important policy consideration in this geography, and the Department of City Planning has incorporated conditions of approval to address neighborhood compatibility and equestrian safety. Each of these properties will have space set aside to ensure that future owners can construct stables and corrals. Additionally, a public equestrian trail will be constructed through the site, consistent with trail locations identified in the general plan. Lastly, equestrian crosswalks and a private trail will be constructed in order to separate equestrians from vehicular traffic to improve safety. On November 21st, 2018, the Council motioned that a K-equine keeping district be applied to this site. The vesting tentative tract map associated with the project was approved by the Deputy Advisory Agency on May 30th, 2019, and was appealed by the applicant on June 10th, 2019. As such, the vesting tentative tract map and associated zone change were heard at the June 27th, 2019 CPC hearing. The CPC upheld the Deputy Advisory Agency's determination in regards to the tract map and recommended that the City Council adopt the zone change request. On August 12, 2019, the tract map received a second-level appeal by Daniel Garcia, an aggrieved party who resides on Calle Milagros, adjacent to the project. As the tract map has been appealed a second time, both the zone change request and the tract map are before you today. The appellant has requested various changes to the conditions of approval associated with both cases, and the applicant has provided a letter to support the appeal and references additional items they would like modified in the zone change and tract conditions. A transmittal has been submitted by staff to address each of the appellant's points, and staff is available to provide additional assistance in regards to the applicant's request items if needed. That concludes our presentation. We're available for any questions. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Next, we'll hear from the appellant, Daniel Garcia. You'll have 5 minutes.
Sorry about that, Council. I'm new at this, and when I heard my name, I came running up.
No problem.
Thank you for hearing my appeal. I want to start out by saying how involved and transparent the builder has been across the street from our neighborhood, which is the Wilson Ranch. And, they've showed us everything they're building and kept us in tune with everything. One of the problems we're having now is apparently some of the trees that are dead on the property, they're not allowing them to remove them. 4 of what we know are in the actual square footage of 4 of the homes, which will mean they have to go back to architectural. One of the things that our neighborhood agreed on is that they would not go to a second story at a certain location on that ranch because it's going to block all our views to beautiful Stony Point. So that's why we're having a problem with them not being able to remove those trees. The Wilson House, which is a beautiful property, being preserved, which it should be, it's over 100 years old. Now apparently they're not being allowed to build that beautiful block wall that has all the veneer stone to match our side of the neighborhood. That seems to be a problem for us because it's not going to look right. It's going to look very unbalanced. The other thing is apparently we're being told that not only do they not want a block wall there, they either want it 100% open or a wrought iron fence. The biggest problem that our neighborhood is having in this neighborhood, all our neighbors, and I represent the other 10, by the way. If you know where we live, we're right below the Chatsworth Tunnel, right in front of Stony Point, and 2 blocks away from Chatsworth Park. It's very dark there. We have a big problem with a lot of drug use in that area because it's so dark. Give you a quick example of what we're dealing with in this beautiful neighborhood. I left out of the country with my wife February 9th of this year. My mother-in-law was there February 10th, about 1 in the morning. Somebody was banging on my door. I have it on ring, showed it to LAPD. Very handsome young man, very clean cut, in a very nice vehicle out in front of my house. And my mother-in-law called 911. She called them right back because when she looked out the window, somebody was getting CPR on my sidewalk. Again, it's an area where people come and park and do drugs. It's the area, I guess, just gravitates. You know, a lot of people stop there. And unfortunately, that young man lost his life in front of my house. And I think we need some gates. That's the most important thing that we're talking about in our neighborhood. There's a lot of children in our neighborhood. Quite a few, when you go down to Panga, quite a few, both businesses and residents, they're all gated. We're the only residents probably between where we're at in Devonshire where you can just walk in. But anyways, I hope that you would consider this. And thank you, Council.
Thank you so much. Now we have a representative for the applicant for 5 minutes or less.
Before we start the clock, as a housekeeping matter, we are 2 items on the agenda, and 2 of us are speaking, so I'm hoping to have Mr. Eric Fowler have an extra minute or 2.
Go ahead and proceed. We'll try to work it out.
Thank you. Thank you for your time and consideration. My name is Karen Halleck, and I am appearing on behalf of the applicant, Santa Susana Estates. The project consists of 19 single-family lots, and it's designed to be a very unique equestrian community with public horse trails and stables and a lot of open space. We obtained a lot of input from the stakeholders and neighbors in the community, many of whom are here today to speak in support of the project. The one appeal by Mr. Garcia is not in opposition to this project, as he mentioned, but instead narrowly objects to certain conditions of approval. From the applicant's perspective, we merely request clarification and slight modifications to certain conditions that are very difficult to meet or in some cases impossible to meet. For example, condition number 23L requires the preservation of trees that are dead or have been removed pursuant to a valid permit. Condition number 23L and 25C require preservation of 2 oak trees and the installation of an equestrian trail that goes through the oak trees, which is impossible. You can't have both. And Mr. Fowler will speak to a few of the more detailed conditions.
Council, thank you for listening. And I didn't realize I was going to be narrowly down to 3 minutes, but I'll do my best here. So we're in a really unique situation here where basically we have the appellant, the developer, the neighborhood, all in favor of this project. There's no opposition to this project whatsoever. Very supportive neighborhood. And what we have here are a number of conditions that have been placed on by the advisory agency that are detrimental to this project. And so we're here to talk about those conditions, most of which are just to make changes to the conditions. The project could be developed to a maximum of 29 units to the acre. We worked with this community and with the equestrian community and agreed to do only 19 units on this site. And we actually placed a letter to you, you probably have it, dated September 10th, 2019, where we were very specific in actual changes that we're recommending to the conditions for what we're asking here. So I want to briefly try to go through the conditions that we're asking to be modified, even though you have that letter in front of you, if hopefully you've read it. But I also provided some exhibits to you at the beginning of the meeting. I don't know if you have them in front of you or not. But like, for example, exhibit number 1 is regarding the trees. And effectively, during the advisory hearing was the first time we actually heard that we were asked to actually keep non-protected trees. The advisory hearing officer asked us to please look into providing additional trees. We provided a list of trees that we felt would work, and it was approximately 10 to 12 trees that we provided. And basically, the advisory agency ignored that and came up with their own list of trees, and many of which actually were just trees that were not even healthy. And so based on the list that we got from the advisory agency, we hired a master arborist to come in, the same arborist that did the work initially, top rated in the state, and she evaluated the health of all the trees, and basically came up with the fact that 5 of the trees were not healthy, and 4 of the trees were actually dead. And then also in the process, she came up with 2 additional trees that we could save. So when you add all this up, and I'm sorry I'm taking all this time on trees, and there's so many other things to talk about, we're going to end up with only 3 fewer trees than what was originally requested. And so I don't think it's a very reasonable request that I'm mentioning. So we're asking you to modify that condition. A second item is regarding equestrian trails, public equestrian trails. In this particular case, the issue came up at the very last minute about not being able to place a equestrian trail over the top of a sewer easement. And this came up literally at the last minute as we were coming up on a planning issue. And basically, we've modified our project. We agreed with their condition. We pulled the equestrian trail out of the easement as they requested. And however, they're saying you cannot cross the sewer line in our condition at all. It's impossible. It's physically impossible for us to extend this trail without crossing the line. And so we submitted a plan to you, and it basically shows how we can safely cross this sewer line for equestrians with nothing, trip hazards, nothing, pursuant to all their other conditions, and do it safely. And we're just asking for you to modify the condition that way. And I'm sorry, I'm going to hustle through this fast. So the next one is private equestrian trails. And the private equestrian trails, basically, as mentioned earlier, there was a conflict, okay? And we're just asking for that trail to be stopped shorter than it was originally conditioned. So there would be 2 lots that wouldn't be able to get access to the trail from the rear of these properties, but it would save 2 large oak trees. And then the other condition, a modification to this condition, is to make the trail 1 foot wider, and that's in order for us to drain it, because there has to, in talking with Public Works, we need a foot to drain it, okay? Next item is the Wilson House. As stated earlier, we really feel that this Wilson House with a view fence, we're asking not to put a block wall up, but to put a nice ornamental iron fence with matching pilasters that match the rest of the wall, and a gate going out to Santa Susana Pass Road in lieu of eliminating the wall altogether, okay? And eliminating the wall altogether invites people to go and do that. Okay, so I'm going fast. The next item is equestrian crosswalks. Again, these flashing beacons in the street are not appropriate for this area. It's a very small street, small residential street. These flashing beacons should belong in more busy areas. So we're asking to remove that. And then lastly, I think you've already heard the appellant talk about gates. So, we are in agreement with him that gates are appropriate in this condition.
Thank you so much. We have a number of public comment speakers on this matter. So I'll call you up. You have 1 minute each to speak, or actually, these are 2 items, so people will get 2 minutes to speak. Eric Fowler, Corey, that was you? Okay. Corey Schmidt, Robbie Wells, Karen Halleck, that was you. Michael Maslin, Kevin Evans. If you want to pass, if you feel like everything has been said, you're by no means required to speak, but should you wish to and your name has been called, you are up for 2 minutes. Yes, sir.
Well, I'm here on behalf of a few of the neighbors.
One more time of your name?
Michael Maslin.
Got it.
I'm here on behalf of Ann Vincent, and they wrote a long letter, so I'm just going to read some of the bullet points. They live on the north end of Calle Milagros on Old Santa Susana Pass Road. They board horses there. And regarding the private gates, they personally pick up trash, discarded drug needles, and liquor bottles on Calle Milagros as they leave the property. Security, unfortunately, is of the utmost importance today in Chatsworth as vagrants and trespassers occupy our city streets and wander up into the hills and start fires. Security gates would be a huge benefit to their property and eliminate people wandering up the road and hopping over their chain link fence. They support the private gates. The Wilson House visibility, they support an iron view fence. They don't want vagrants wandering into the private property. The tree preservation plan, as members of the Chatsworth Historical Society and preservation of the Santa Susana Mountains, they support native trees and plants. The request to remove 4 trees not native to the Los Angeles area makes no sense. Public equestrian trails, they support an equestrian crossing over the future sewer easement at a 90-degree angle out to B Canyon Road for Lot 1. Rapid flashing beacons, thank God they don't have any rapid flashing beacons on their horse ranch. It would raise their blood pressure. And the horses too, they agree that there should not be rapid flashing beacons. To put 3 sets of flashing lights between A Street, Calle Milagros on B Canyon is dangerous and a distraction to the horses and riders. There are only 19 homes in the entire development. These will not be busy streets, and to suggest this is ridiculous.
Thank you so much.
That's it.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Kevin Evans. I live at 10868 Canyon, which is a private road. My wife and I bought the property about 4 years ago, and rarely do we see horses come through the area. The few horses that we do see come through are not being ridden. They're being led with a rope. I don't really see the need for these crosswalks with lights since horse traffic is minimal. But what we have witnessed in the area is people coming through the neighborhood with shopping carts, going through, rummaging through our trash and recyclable containers. We noticed a tent pitched up off Calle Milagro one morning. Someone was living in it for the night, and our neighbors have called the police numerous times on some of these violations. We are hoping you understand that we need to feel safe in the neighborhood, and would like to allow gate installation on these private roads. Thank you.
Thank you.
I believe you called my name. My name is Colin Nemiroff. I'm with Stantec Consulting. I'm the consulting engineer for this project. Here to answer any questions. I did want to make note that the applicant submitted a revised tentative track map to the council in preparation for this hearing. This was modified to address conditions imposed by the advisory agency, the Planning Commission, as well as to address the request of this appeal. We request that you make a recommendation to approve this updated tentative track map that incorporates all the items that have been brought up at this hearing today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Robbie Wells, homeowner at Stony Point Estates in Chatsworth, and we're here representing all the homeowners for our development. So about 4 years ago, my wife and I bought our dream house. Beautiful home on horse property, beautiful views, and it was pretty spectacular because all the kids in the neighborhood would just go outside and ride their bikes in the cul-de-sac. The parents would kind of hang out, make it a social gathering every night after work until, like Danny was saying, for some reason, Chatsworth, there's no streetlights. It gets very dark. It's a place for people to come, go in their car, shoot up, get high. We find needles, in our front yards. My little girl will go to school in the morning and see people passed out in her car in front of our beautiful multi-million-dollar home. It doesn't make us any more deserving of anybody else, but every single homeowner in our development wants a gate. When we bought into the community, we were promised gates, and so we were so excited when Eric and his development team came and said that they were going to gate the community and we could all have access to it. So I know one of the oppositions here, I believe it's these 3 ladies in front of me. You guys didn't want the gates because of the horses to, have them have access. I'll say this, my 10-year-old little girl says to me, she goes, "Daddy, who are these people that don't live in our neighborhood that don't want us to have gates, don't they understand there's more crazy people walking through than horses? I might see 1 or 2 horses a year. We love horses. They're beautiful, but we never see them. We never see them. So maybe there's a compromise. Maybe we can put up gates and give little clickers to all the horse owners in the neighborhood so everybody's happy. Simple thought. Maybe it works. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much. Now I think that concludes. Actually, I got a few more people on here. Janice Lauritsen, Ann Vinson, Christine Rangel. You'll pass?
I'm here for Janice.
What's your name?
Michael Maslin.
Okay, I called you.
On behalf of Janice Lawson.
Well, you have to be on behalf of yourself because we called your name.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, she's lived there on Farallone for over 40 years. They're very in support. They're very much in support of the security gates. Pretty much that. The non-native trees on this site should go. They don't belong there anymore, and that's it. That's it for Janice Lawrenson.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. And Ms. Christine to close.
Good afternoon again. As a promoter of housing for all, the BIA asks that you accept the applicant and the appellant's appeal. The applicant has worked closely with the community to address concerns and ensure compatibility with the surrounding neighborhood. And we are here today because we believe that this is important in supporting LA's housing goals in general, because during a severe shortage, every unit of housing that we build counts. We ask that the council, that the committee reconsider the applicant's modified conditions of approval, especially regarding private gates and the applicant's tree preservation plan. This project is exemplary of everything that is wrong with the housing approval process today. The goalposts on the projects have continually been moving, delaying the project for 3 years. This is why we don't have housing starts and we don't have more people moving into housing quickly. The state of the property has changed since the land was purchased, and now the applicant's being asked to make up for those changes by replacing them with new trees and even more. As you have heard, this is a complicated issue. This has added months onto the planning process, and time is money. These are the challenges that we are facing to produce housing, and we're facing them together as a city. It's death by 1,000 cuts. Please approve this project swiftly. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a representative from Council District 12. No? All right. I'll ask our members of the Department of Planning, City Planning, to hear if you have any responses to the public comment.
As a second-level appeal, many of these items came up at the City Planning Commission hearing and were addressed in the staff report and were addressed at that hearing. I'll briefly go through each one of the points. In regards to the private gates, they were conditioned to be prohibited due to mobility element findings that had to be made about access to the site, but additionally, the public trails, which are identified in the general plan and in the community plan, pass through the center of this site, and unfortunately, gates south of this site in the appellant's neighborhood has rendered it impossible for the public to access these public trails. Additionally, there are properties which are landlocked, which have been utilizing Bee Canyon as access. So for those multiple reasons, planning staff recommended the prohibition of gates along Old Santa Susana Pass Road. In regards to the Wilson House has to be remodeled and refurbished per Interior Secretary standards, and one of the standards talks about not changing the, it's in the appeal discussion, but the conditions were applied to assure that the walls don't turn the front yard orientation of the historic structure into a side yard, so that way that structure can continue to be accessed from Old Santa Susana Pass Road. In regards to the tree preservation plan, the DAA was attempting to preserve more trees on this site. Over 80% of the trees on this site are going to be removed as part of this project, and the DAA attempted to find trees that were located outside the footprints of the homes. And based on the soils report, there was clarification that if trees were more than something like 7 feet from the footprints of homes, that they would be outside the impacted areas of these homes. So the DAA selected additional trees to preserve, and a tree report has been provided by the applicant for your consideration that is newer. However, the tree preservation plan that we utilized was from November of last year, and those are the conditions that were applied. In regards to the public equestrian trail, the movement of the trail 10 feet east from the configuration that it was in the original tract map, planning staff would like to ask some time to be able to present it to BOE since they were on the DAA in order to get comments from BOE about the current configuration, as we're not engineers. In regards to the equestrian crosswalk lighting, staff wanted to make sure that in this area, there's no street lights in this area. So when riders ride in the morning or in the evenings, it's going to be dark, and these streets, because they don't have street lights, there's opportunities for equestrians to come into conflict with motorists. So we identified 3 locations for equestrian crosswalks and provided a condition that would require a rapid flashing beacon, which could be placed in the roadway that would be initiated by a actuator signal button. So only if someone comes up and decides they want to press the button, then these lights would come on. And that was that condition was applied in tandem with findings from the mobility plan about safety for various modes of travel. And lastly, in regards to the private equestrian trail, again, that was another condition that was applied to ensure that users on the site could take their horses from their backyards and get onto the public trail without having to take their horses onto the private streets. The issue is that horses aren't allowed to be on sidewalks, so someone riding their horse would have to get into the street, and that could pose safety problems. So those were the conditions that were applied and discussed at CPC, and if you need any additional clarification, we're happy to assist.
All right, thank you so much for those.
Excuse me,
Yes.
Council Member. Terry Kaufman, Mesilla City Attorney's Office. So it's my understanding that some of these changes may be mitigation measures. And if that is correct, then there's a process to deal with that. You can change mitigation measures if the replacement measure is equal or more effective than the original measure, but you need to do that in a public hearing. So you would notice that, and then when this project goes to council, they could call it limited and address that if you want to substitute mitigation measures, if that's correct. And then my other point is it's a good idea to have BOE and Public Works look at the horse trail and the placement of equipment and easements, because we've had several situations where there's been an incompatibility and working it out has been very difficult. So it would be better to have that addressed now rather than after the fact.
All right, can folks from Department of City Planning respond to those questions, to the new information?
Yes, so as was mentioned previously, a new tree report has been submitted, and the original condition of the City Planning Commission staff report listed out specific trees that are slated for preservation, and all other trees are slated for removal. There is a mitigation measure that requires a 1-to-1 tree replacement of any and all trees. So we would just want to update the list of trees to be removed and replaced at that ratio per the mitigation measure.
Okay. All right, so Mr. Mejia, I think we have some instructions in front of us for both 9 and 10.
Yes, Councilman. So as to item 9, Councilman, adopt the mitigated negative deck, number ENV 2016-3175 MND, including the supplemental to the initial study dated September 19, 2019, the mitigation measures, the mitigation monitoring program, and the related CEQA findings as modified by today's action. Grant in part, deny in part, the appeal by Daniel Garcia, and thereby approve the vesting track map number 74448 for the merger and subdivision of an 11.92 acre site into 19 single-family lots for the properties located at 10811 through 10921 North Old Santa Susana Pass Road, and modify the following language and conditions of approval. 1, correct the haul route information to reflect an import of 5,200 cubic yards. Condition number 23F, allow the use of ornamental fencing pilasters at a height consistent with the municipal code with a design that preserves the visibility of the historic Wilson House. Condition number 23L, update the tree preservation plan with the updated tree report dated August 26, 2019. Condition number 25A, modify the location of the public trail to the east of the sewer easement. Condition number 25B, remove the requirement for rapid flashing beacons and signal actuator buttons. Retain all other requirements for crosswalk infrastructure and equestrian warning signs. Condition number 25C, modify this condition to shorten the private trail to preserve 2 oak trees and update the plans to provide more specificity for the development of the trail and drainage easement. Instruct the planning department to update the findings and CEQA findings where necessary to reflect the stated modifications. In addition, you may want to instruct the planning department to prepare and update the track map consistent with today's changes. As to item number 10, Councilman, you would be approving the zone change subject to modified conditions of approval and the findings that they would be consistent with today's action, and to also make a finding that the project was assessed under MND number ENV 2016-3175 MND, including the supplemental to the initial study dated September 19, 2019, and adopt pursuant to CEQA guidelines section 15162 and 15164 that no subsequent EIR negative deck or addendum is required for approval of the project.
All right, those instructions have been read into the record. Discussion, members, and then we'll hear from City Attorney.
One thing on that, I didn't hear an instruction to planning to regarding the tree removal and replacement. So they would need an instruction to make that change, and then they could bring it forward to council. It's not a mitigation measure. It's a separate condition of approval, so you don't have to do a hearing at council, but they need the instruction to make the change. I don't think Roberto said that. Did he?
Update the preservation plan, the tree preservation plan.
Okay.
Yeah, it was in the instructions.
Okay.
Got it. All right. So it's those concerns have been met. We've got instructions before us. Any comments or questions, members? Hearing none, the instructions have been moved. Seeing no and hearing no objection, that'll be the order. That dispenses with items number 9 and 10. Where does that leave us, Mr. Mejia?
That concludes the agenda, Councilman.
Excellent. Our business is concluded and we are adjourned. Thank you so much.